Today we're going to make a zipper coin pouch. I'm using this little Hulk fabric. You can see I've got tons of projects going in my sewing room 24/7. So that's another project that you just saw on my table that I'm working on. Back to the fabrics. I bought a fat quarter of Avenger fabrics. And so that Hulk fabric that I'm using, that's where that came from. And then my lining fabric is just a solid lavender. What I'm cutting right now is a fusible fleece stabilizer. And you can use this. It'll give your bag a nice sturdy quality. You can also use any type of interfacing you want. It depends on how stiff you want your bag to be. You only want to put this on the outside layer so that that main fabric that you're going to put on the outside, that's what you want to put your fusible fleece on. So what we're cutting it is the dimensions of the bag, which is 7.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And I have the centimeters listed above as well. So I like to iron my fabrics. A lot of people do different things. So sometimes people will pre-wash their fabric. I don't always do that, but if you do pre-wash, you kind of need to be consistent with that because there is a little bit of shrinkage when it comes to fabric. So you either need to pre-wash everything or nothing. Sometimes it's helpful to get some of these wrinkles out, to either have a water bottle handy next to your ironing board or starch. I have a bottle of starch I usually keep next to there, but I didn't have it handy for this project. Okay, let's go ahead and cut out our main fabric. So if you have a directional print, when you're cutting, keep in mind that 7.5 inches is width and 6.5 inches is height. So when you're cutting out your directional prints, just keep that in mind. This is kind of an all over print, so it really didn't matter what way I cut it, but that would depend on how you're going to cut your fat quarter and how many bags you can get from your fat quarter. So what I'm cutting now is the little tab. So it's a 3-inch wide by 5-inch wide tab. And now it's time to cut the lining. The lining's going to be the same size as the main fabric. So it's going to be 7.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches tall as well. And the centimeters are pictured on screen. I did end up making 2 bags, so that's why I've cut some extra pieces. So if you see extra pieces, that's why. Now I'm going to iron my fusible fleece to the front of my fabrics. I sped this up just because I kind of like taking my time when I'm ironing. You don't want your iron too terribly hot because it could melt that fusible fleece if your iron is super hot. Warm is perfect because you don't want it to get too hot and then kind of wrinkle up your fabric on the front. That's a possibility. Just all right, now let's go ahead and add our zipper. So I am making sure that the right side of my zipper is facing the right side of my outer fabric. So you see it's upside down to you looking at it, but that's because I want the back side of the zipper to be inside the bag. So I'm going to use these little clips. They're so handy for sewing, and they come in really handy for this project. We're lining up the pieces. We are going to sew straight across. We're going to sew right in line with that zipper straight across. So you got to change your sewing foot to a zipper foot. And we're going to follow that edge right along the side. This zipper I'm using, you can see pictured here, is actually too short for my project. I went ahead and switched out because I made a couple different ones. So I switched out that zipper. So later on you'll see a longer zipper, and that's why. I think this zipper is a 7-inch, and the one I recommend you using is a 9-inch. It's usable, but see, I've got the 9-inch zipper on it now. It's much easier for the project. So now we've got the initial seam on the zipper. And now what we're going to do is iron it. You can finger press this, or you can iron it. We want to make sure this lining fabric doesn't fold up. So when we top stitch it, and this top stitching is important, you don't want to miss this step. We're going to top stitch right along the edge of that seam. This just holds the outer fabric and the lining together so that the lining doesn't get caught in your zipper later on when you're using it. Okay, our top stitching is done. We're going to add the next piece of fabric. This is our other side of our bag. Make sure your right sides are together. My lining fabric kind of looks the same on both sides. So as long as it looks the same on both sides, it's fine. I'm pinning those next layers together. And then we'll sew the other side of our zipper the same exact way we sewed the other one. And we're opening it up, and now you can see you've got each side of the zipper has the bag on it, a bag top and a bag lining. Just going to iron that lining back so it doesn't get in the zipper when we top stitch it. And now we're going to top stitch across. Again, like I said, this keeps the bag, when you're using it later on, it keeps all the layers where they need to be. And now we can take the zipper foot off our sewing machine, and we can add our regular foot back on. This is the tab that we're going to have on the side of the bag. We're folding it in half lengthwise, and then what you'll do is pull it apart and tuck each raw edge into that fold. Then fold that in half and iron it. Just ironing it is usually enough. You can pin it if you want or use those clips, but usually just ironing it is enough to hold it together. And then just make one little stitch across. You can stitch on both sides if you like that look. Okay, make sure you unzip your zipper. Not all the way. You want the zipper to be inside, but you want part of it to be open, because now we're going to clip the bag together. Where the bag lining and the bag front kind of meet at that zipper, you want to push that zipper edge towards the lining. And we're just clipping all those edges together. What we're going to do is we're going to leave an opening at the bottom of the lining, and we're going to sew all the way around. We're going to sew a big rectangle. And the reason why you wanted to leave your bag unzipped is so that you can turn it later. We're lifting our presser foot, turning our fabric. Put your presser foot back down. That's an easy way to do the corners. Real quick, I almost forgot to show you adding in the little tab. So we're going to add the little tab in on the side that the zipper opens. And I'm going to add it right on top of the bag. Sometimes it's a little thick right where that zipper is, so you might have to give it a little tug from the back just to get it through. When you're using zippers, you want to use a zipper that's plastic that doesn't have metal teeth. If it has metal teeth, you won't be able to sew over the zipper like I'm doing. So, when you're buying a zipper, make sure it's a nylon zipper. I'm just clipping the corners. This will help it turn better. And we're going to grab the bottom of that bag and push it through the opening. If that opening is too small, you can always use a seam ripper and clip it open a little more. I tend to make my openings smaller and then start trying to put my fabric through, and then it's like, oh, I made too small of an opening. And that's honestly because I don't like sewing up. I don't like leaving a big opening when I'm sewing it up, but I'll show you a little trick for something that can make it look really nice when we get to that part. All right, so I just wanted to kind of see how it was going to look. I turned out all the corners. Okay, it looks pretty good before we completely seal it up. Now let's pull out the lining. And we've got that little opening. So I'm going to use a little tag. These are one of the tags that I've made. I use spoon flour to print off tags, and then I just stitch around them. So now I'm just going to add a pin to kind of hold it in place so that it doesn't move too much. And then I'm going to top stitch that. I'm sewing pretty close to the edge, but you want to make sure that all your layers are in that seam, because it can be annoying if you pull it out and then you don't have the back layer in the seam. And we're just top stitching, and now it looks like I meant to leave that bag open at the bottom. That's where I was going to put my tag anyway. So that's my little trick to finish off the openings. So now we'll just tuck it back in there, and your little zipper bag is finished. This is a great size bag for little cosmetics or odds and ends that tend to get lost in the bottom of your purse or your backpack. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial. I have more tutorials on my YouTube channel, Katie Crafty Mom. I also have a blog at katiecraftymom.com. Thanks for watching, guys.